Hi, it's Jokoya Kennedy again. I'm going to be completing the last assignment for this semester. Excuse me. This is the trauma explanation summary. So I just wanted to start off just by talking a little bit about the client that will be portrayed in this video. So the client that I am going to be using is a 12-year-old adolescent female. So I'm kind of doing it like the adolescent has come in with her mother for a intake interview, just to kind of get a feel for what kind of services our agency offers. She's specifically interested in the trauma-focused cognitive behavior therapy that our agency provides. However, before she can get assigned a therapist, she has to kind of go through the assessment process. So again, this scenario is kind of just going to be like the beginning phases of therapy, and like the intake and assessment portion, and kind of just trying to figure out if she meets the criteria for going through trauma-focused CBT. But before we even get her assigned to everything, and before we go through the assessments, I'm going to kind of go through what trauma is with her and kind of explain to her everything so that she has a better understanding of it before we go through the various assessments that need to be completed. So, Angela, I'm so excited that you were able to come in today with your mom. I know it kind of seems like overwhelming with trying to get a lot of this paperwork done, but just like I was telling your mom that, it's just kind of like a part of the process for how we get services started here at Child Guidance. And then, I just wanted your mom to leave for a little bit so that she can kind of focus on some of the assessment paperwork that I'm going to go through with you. But I also just wanted to give us some time for us to talk one-on-one as well. So I kind of just wanted to give you like a better understanding of like what trauma is, and how you think like it impacts you, and like how like trauma can affect individuals differently. I know your mom was talking a little bit about how she's had some traumatic experiences in the past with the relationship with your dad, and like the domestic violence that the family went through as a whole. But your trauma is different from her trauma. Not to say that one is any better or anything, but just so that there can be like a more of a clear understanding of things. Trauma just doesn't have to be physical. It can also be mental. So even though it's not causing like any type of harm to your body, doesn't mean that it's not traumatic. For example, there are victims of natural disasters, like the survivors of Hurricane Katrina. They went through a traumatic experience. It was traumatic. People lost their homes, people lost their jobs, people lost family members. So, that's traumatic. That's traumatic to them. They've been through a traumatic experience. And your mom, she was in an abusive relationship. And I know you don't really like to talk about this, but you were also, sexually abused when you were younger. So, that's traumatic. That's a type of traumatic experience. So I just want you to keep in mind that it doesn't always have to be physical, and doesn't always have to cause you harm. Doesn't have to always cause you harm. I'm sorry, but that it can also be mentally as well. And I know your mom had talked a little bit about how like before you had some anxiety and a lot of stress. She thinks it's related to the sexual abuse that you've experienced, and she thinks it's impacting like how you are today and how you're functioning today at home or in school. With not being able to like control your emotions all the time, or just like secluding yourself from the rest of the family. And you just say that no, I just don't want to be bothered. I just don't like them. But sometimes that's not always true. Sometimes like the experiences from our past impacts how we are today, especially when someone has been through some type of traumatic experience. Some people might not always realize this, but how your brain and your body respond to the trauma you experience could be really different from how your brain and your body responds to when you're like having a good time out with your friends. A lot of time for people who have experienced some type of traumatic experiences, they can either remember everything like word for word, detail for detail, or they're struggling to even like remember what happened. They kind of just like, they might have like flashbacks or something like that, but they really are not able to put like everything together. And then when your body and your brain kind of have these different feelings, or not feelings, they kind of have these different memories of everything that's happening, they respond differently. A lot of times, clients who develop post-traumatic stress or post-traumatic stress disorder, they kind of develop this based on their memory of the traumatic event. So kind of like how you remember it and how you don't remember it kind of impacts whether you'll either have symptoms of post-traumatic stress or post-traumatic stress disorder. So a lot of times too, like we have to look into things for like the brain's memory. So if you like it, depending on like your implicit and your explicit memory, kind of helps us clinicians determine whether or not you'll develop the disorder or not. And then there's two differences between implicit and explicit memory. So your explicit memory kind of is really like the facts of like what happened, and their consciousness, and all of that happens kind of in the hippocampus of your brain. And then you have the implicit memory, which is kind of your unconsciousness. It's like your body, your sensory, your emotions, and kind of like how your body responds to like the different memories that you develop. So the last thing I want to share with you is kind of just some information about on like the healing process of what trauma is, and how you would go about that in therapy, and kind of like where you go from here once kind of you've gone through the trauma focused CBT, and once therapy has been completed. So a lot of times like you'll hear a therapist say that you really can't undo the traumatic event that's happened to you, but what we can do is kind of help you deal with your emotions better, and kind of help you revisit the trauma, so that you can kind of take a different look on things, because like the more aware of you are of like how your body responds to certain things and how your brain responds to certain things when it comes to like reliving the trauma or other stressors or triggers that you might have, the easier you see your life will be. So, once you feel like you're in control of everything, once you feel like you're in control of your body and in control of your mind, you'll start to have that safety feeling again. You'll look to your family as your support system, for them to help you out, and for you to rely on them once you're going through all these sorts of things. And then you'll start realizing that I do have control. I do have control over the stress that I'm feeling. I do have the control over the tightness that's in my chest. You're able to control that. You're able to learn the different coping skills that you need to get through these tests, and you'll just be able to have like a happier life once you're complete, once you're finished with everything. Do you have any questions about trauma before we kind of go through this criteria worksheet? And I know I kind of gave you a lot of information, but even if you don't have any questions right now, feel free that when you come back to just let me know anything you have, and to my best of my ability, I'll try to answer any of the questions that you have. And also I just encourage you to, kind of like look into the therapy for yourself, and kind of, talk to your mom too, because, she's a good resource for you since she's been through trauma as well. And, hopefully then we'll be able to go from there. Okay? All right. I look forward to you coming back. Thanks.